when Putana came before Krishna, Krishna saw that her intent was malevolent. He saw that she had come to kill him. And at that moment, Krishna blinked. And he overlooked her malevolent intention. But when Putana offered her breast, Krishna unblinkingly observed that maternal act of service. That single act was accepted by the Lord and was magnified. This is why Krishna is special, even among all forms of the personality of Godhead. The depth of mercy, this willingness to remember and reward even the smallest trace of devotion is found uniquely in Krishna. Later in the 10th canto, after the Brahma Vimohan Lila, Lord Brahma is overwhelmed and he says this prayer to Krishna. My mind becomes bewildered just trying to think of what reward other than you could be found anywhere. You are the embodiment of all benedictions, which you bestow upon these residents of the cowherd community of Vrindavan. You have already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members in exchange for disguising herself as a devotee. So what is left for you to give these devotees of Vrindavan, whose homes, wealth, friends, dear relations, bodies, children, and very lives and hearts are all dedicated only to you? And that phrase by Lord Brahma is especially striking. Disguising herself as a devotee. Putana did not come with pure intention. She came pretending, disguising herself as someone loving and devotional, but internally harboring violence. Yet Krishna still accepted her. As Brahma notes, he gave himself to her. So this verse gives tremendous encouragement. It tells us something deeply consoling about Krishna's heart. He is not waiting for perfection. He is watching for sincerity. Even a small, awkward attempt to serve, he magnifies it beyond measure. If Putana received Krishna himself for disguising herself as a devotee, then what to speak of someone who is actually trying? Someone who's struggling, but honest. This is the gift of the 10th canto. It is the revelation of Krishna's heart. That is why he descends. Not to perform cosmic functions, but to reveal the beauty of his personality and the intimacy of his love. In the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj explains that, yes, Krishna comes to annihilate the demons, but that is the external reason. Internally, he has a different reason. Internally, he comes to perform pastimes, to attract the conditioned souls back to him. Krishna has only one occupation. Do you know what it is? To love and be loved. Now, our acharyas explain that Putana represents the false guru, one who appears devoted but leads others astray and brings great spiritual harm. And today, we remember the appearance of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who boldly exposed such deception and reestablished the standard of true spiritual authority. Before the appearance of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya had been obscured. Externally, the tradition continued, but much of it had been corrupted by casteism and by pseudo-devotional practices. His father, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, seeing this tragic decline in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, felt helpless to restore it on his own. And he was a powerful, he was an empowered Vaishnava and magistrate, yet he knew that to turn this around, this situation required not just a reformer, but someone sent from the spiritual world itself. So he prayed with intensity to the Lord, praying, please send a ray of Vishnu into this dark world. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Thakur appeared in the Holy Dham of Jagannath Puri in 1874. And he was given the name Bimala Prasad. There are so many noteworthy things, I can only share a few, of his early life that indicated that this was a great soul. When he was born, for example, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his body like a Brahmin thread. The astrologer who did his birth chart declared, "This is not a regular person. This is a Mahapurusha." By age 7, he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita and could refute any opposing views on any verse. He read only the writings of his father and Srila Narottam Das Thakur, yet he topped every exam in school, and he could remember every lesson that he heard. At 16, with his classmates, he formed the August Assembly, a spiritual club where only Bhakti topics could be discussed. Entrance required a vow of lifelong celibacy. I don't think you'll be surprised to know he's the only one who kept that vow. He became a brilliant astronomer and scholar, writing a treatise on the Vedic text, the Surya Siddhanta. And from his brilliant treatise, he was given a name by other scholars, Siddhanta Saraswati. But soon after that, he left college, he left university without graduating. He knew he wanted to dedicate his life to Krishna, to preaching, and he also knew that if he continued with this scholarly fame, that when he graduated, there would be a lot of pressure put on him to take on a high position, to lead society in that way, and he felt he couldn't possibly fulfill his preaching if he did that. So he left college without taking a degree. At that time, in Indian society, Indian society was dominated by hereditary casteism. The Brahmins claimed spiritual leadership simply by birth, even if they lacked character or spiritual knowledge. These Brahmins used religion for control, income, and status. If someone sinned, they wouldn't guide them towards spiritual life. They would simply charge a fee so that they could do a ritual of atonement. And meanwhile, pure Vaishnavas like Srila Bhakti Thakur were not recognized as spiritual leaders because they weren't born in Brahmin families. The caste Brahmins declared, if you're not born a Brahmin, you can't wear the sacred thread, you can't teach the Vedas, and you certainly cannot initiate disciples. This was the climate that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta grew up in. And too ill to attend a conference on this issue, his father cried out, "Is there no Vaishnava who can stop these rascals from destroying Vedic culture?" Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati answered the call. He wrote a paper proving from Shastra that devotion, not birth, qualifies one for spiritual leadership. He wrote, even a Shudra or sannyasi, if they know Krishna Tattva, can be guru for the whole world. So he went to the conference and he began by first glorifying the Brahmins, quoting Shastra, praising their duties, how important it is to have Brahmins in society. As for the Brahmins, were like, yes, this great scholar is on our side. But that was just a setup. Because midway through, he made a very sharp turn. And he's defined straight from scripture what a true Brahmin is. One with character, knowledge, and God consciousness. Then he challenged, now let us examine your behavior. What followed was 3 days of fierce debate. Anyone who opposed him was defeated by Shastric logic. On the final day, he spoke for 2 hours, and then he invited rebuttals. Silence. Nobody could say anything. No one could respond. So the innocent applauded, the castists fled, and from that moment he was known as the undisputed defender of Vaishnava Siddhanta. I'm running over, but I'm behind my own schedule, but I'm going to keep going. In 1905, he took a vow to chant 1 billion names of Krishna. Sometimes you hear 1 million, that's incorrect. He took a vow to chant 1 billion with a B names of Krishna, and that meant 192 rounds daily. For 9 years in Navadvip, he lived in a simple thatched hut, chanting continuously and following strict vows of Chaturmasya. He would cook khichdi with his own hands, but he would not eat from a plate. He would put it on a leaf on the floor, and then he'd put his hands behind his back, and he would eat like that. He would not allow himself to eat with hands or utensils. And when he came up, if he had to come up for air, then he was done eating. He was establishing within himself humility. He wanted to eat like a cow, the way cows eat without pride or entitlement or indulgence. He rejected all comforts. And his chanting was equally severe. If his concentration was interrupted or he had to adjust his posture, he would not count that round. He would begin again. During the monsoon, once a hole developed in the roof, but he didn't want to take time away from chanting to fix it. So as the monsoons poured down, he just sat with an umbrella inside the hut chanting. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati knew he needed a guru. As brilliant as he was, that's why he was so brilliant. He knew he needed a guru, and he approached Srila Guru Kishore Das Babaji repeatedly, many times for initiation. And although Srila Guru Kishore Das Babaji was illiterate, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was one of the most renowned scholars of the day, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta humbly pleaded with him, "My learning is useless unless used in your service." Babaji, Guru Kishore Das Babaji declined several times, but eventually, seeing Bhaktisiddhanta's humility and surrender, he finally relented and accepted him as his only disciple. After a vision in which the Panchatattva and previous acharyas told him to preach, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta took sannyas in 1918 alone in front of a picture of his Guru Maharaj. He then founded the Gaudiya Mutt, established 64 temples in his lifetime, and he began what he called the Brihad Madanga, the printing press. He launched newspapers, wrote books, established diorama museums, and he even preached on British radio. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had many enemies. The Sahajias resented him for exposing their false displays of devotion. Caste Brahmins hated him because he proved from Shastra that qualities, not birth, define a Brahmin, and they really hated that he gave initiation, even sannyas, to people who were not born as Brahmins. There were several legitimate threats and attempts on his life, but he remained undisturbed in his preaching. In 1922, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, then a young man known as Abhaycharan Day, met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for the first time in Calcutta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not ask his name, his background, or his occupation. He gave a command. "You are an intelligent young man. Take Lord Chaitanya's message and preach it in English throughout the world." And later, Srila Prabhupada said that in that moment, he accepted him as his spiritual master. And years afterward, that instruction was made unmistakable. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, shortly before he left this world, he told him, "If you get money, print books. If you want to please me, distribute my books."